I couldn't wait for you to come and clear the cupboards. But now you're gone and leaving nothing but a sign. Another evening I'll be sitting reading in between your lines, because I miss you all the time. So
Maine, I came to back you up.
I let her down. I thought if I gave her some space, time, she'd get back on her feet.
I lost everyone.
Everyone? Scorpion, is he here?
Dario's dead. She didn't make it.
He's safe, right?
Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't make it in time.
David, come on! Can you hear me?
Come on, gotta get the fuck out of the city.
It's gonna be alright. You'll see Misty, your mom, everyone you love. Jackie, don't close your eyes.
Please ignore the background. I'm recording this at 4:30 in the morning during finals week. Night City, a place where the government would be corporate run, allowing optimum zoning and no anti-business elements to interfere with corporate growth. Ideally, it would be a capitalist mecca of opportunity. This is a quote from the Cyberpunk Wiki, which shallowly encapsulates what Night City is. It is the capitalist dream, a perfect world where everything is privately owned by a handful of companies. As someone who has played a good amount of Night City, fuck me, dude. As someone who has played a good amount of Cyberpunk 2077 and watched Edgerunners twice, I can confidently say that Night City is a capitalist nightmare. Law enforcement is unreliable and is owned by a corporation. Emergency medical responders will straight up leave you to die if you don't have good enough insurance, and no matter what you do, you will always end up working for the megacorps. Edgerunners made that last one very apparent. If you're at all familiar with any cyberpunk media, you've probably heard something similar to Cyberpunk is a critique of capitalism, which is true. The game lives up to the punk in its name, but it's not the whole truth. I'm not too focused on the entire critique of capitalism angle because it's been done, but capitalism and cyberpunk go hand in hand, so it will come up. What I am focused on is the people. I think a more fitting statement to cyberpunk and its world is the classic quote from 19th century British politician Lord Acton, saying, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." When I first wrote the script, I was inspired by a Wendigoon video about how the American government sabotaged some of the AR-15s that were sent to Vietnam because, long story short, my god, I can't believe I wrote this. They think the M16 is the best girl and will do anything for their waifu. Yeah, cut that out. The full video is really interesting, even if Wendigoon probably has his more controversial opinions. But besides that, we're both from Georgia. Go Falcons. Anyways, this video got me thinking about the military and how humans feel the need to always have the best weapon, the most guns, the most explosive bomb, the most people. Interesting fact, the United States military includes over 2.8 million people. Not only that, but the US military strength of 2.86 million troops is slightly greater than the population. Not only that, but the US military strength of 2.86 million troops is slightly greater than the population of Chicago, which is America's third largest country, by the way. Yeah, editing Violet here. Chicago's not a country, you idiot. But I digress. See, the military is a perfect example of how people will use the resource of, well, people as a weapon. A weapon is just a tool, and tools can be replaced. This is prevalent enough that there are plenty of terms to describe these expendable people, like cannon fodder, meat shield, human shield, you know, the ones your friends call you when you suck at video games. To someone at the top of the economical food chain, the lives of individual people don't matter as much because they would never interact with these people. And why would they? That would humanize them, make them no longer a tool. I'm sure that the 4 United States presidents that were in office during the Vietnam War weren't fully able to process the approximately 60,000 American citizens that died in Vietnam so we could prevent communism or whatever. Obviously, we hear these numbers and they sound horrible, but the point I'm trying to back up with historical evidence is not only that people die in war, but that in any human military, the pointless pursuit of power ends in so many lost human lives. To pull from another famous example in the video game sphere, Helldivers 2 does an excellent and hilarious satire of this exact point. In Helldivers, you play as, well, a Helldiver, and are tasked with dropping into an alien planet and exterminating hostile enemies. The game is filled with fake propaganda, stating that the Helldivers are freeing the galaxy by going to foreign planets and killing alien life. Got it. This reminds me of the videos of the guy who's like eating. So, who's gonna tell transgender women that? Anyways. The game is filled with fake propaganda, stating that the Helldivers are freeing the galaxy. I already said that. The game is a satirization of fascist regimes and colonialism, where every single player works together to colonize other planets. It's a fantastic concept for a game, and that might even make it sound like the military isn't dehumanizing these people because you can actively see the fruits of your labor. But this game is not easy. You and your squad mates will die a lot, and when they do, the actual person you're controlling does not come back to life. Instead, someone new is dropped down. They will have the same weapons and armor, but it is an entirely new person. So let's talk about Cyberpunk. Night City is run by corporations, the biggest of which is Arasaka. The Arasaka Corporation manufactures arms and provides corporate security. They're the best of the best. Quote, the largest and most powerful armed forces of any corporation in the world. End quote. That's from the wiki. In this universe, people can get cybernetic enhancements all over their body, which they generally use to make themselves more powerful. You can make your hacks better, make your fists made out of something harder than just bone so it hurts less when you punch, and even get mechanical claws to come out of your arms. To keep up in Night City, you need to constantly grow or else you will fall behind your contemporaries. That growth has a limit. In the Cyberpunk universe, cyberpsychosis is a mental disorder triggered by an excessive amount of cybernetic enhancements to the body. According to the wiki, symptoms can include decay of self-preservation, distancing or disregard from friends and family, and poor or impulsive outbursts or acts. The collection of these symptoms can cause that affected person to act highly violent, and that is how cyberpsychos are represented in the universe. Simply put, if you go over your Chrome limit, you go crazy. Cyberpsychosis is basically a mechanic that Cyberpunk uses in universe to stop characters from becoming too overpowered. But it also adds depth to the storytelling. Each cybernetic upgrade reduces not only the humanity of the physical body, but also the individual's mental well-being, or their mental humanity. It's the consequence of sacrificing that humanity to become a formidable weapon. That same sacrifice could be equated to someone joining the military. When an individual enlists, they don't instantly lose their humanity, but gradually become desensitized to their surroundings. Not to mention that when you are in the military, you undergo vigorous training to make sure you are strong. Because on the battlefield, you can't be weak. You can't have emotions. This mirrors the environment of Cyberpunk and Night City, where toughness is a necessity and mental health is not given much attention. This lack of focus on mental health and mental well-being is crucial in understanding the aftermath of leaving either the military or engaging in the violent jobs offered by fixers in the Cyberpunk universe. If you're familiar at all with the symptoms of PTSD, you might realize that cyberpsychosis bears resemblance. According to Mayo Clinic, some of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder include, quote, feeling detached from family and friends, lack of interest in activities you once enjoyed, feeling emotionally numb, self-destructive behavior, irritability, angry outbursts, or aggressive behavior. Sound familiar? The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs reports that 29% of the people deployed during the War on Terror are diagnosed with PTSD sometime in their life. In the cyberpunk world, there was little concern for rehabilitating cyberpsychos back into the world outside of the quest line you do for Regina Jones in 2077. We see that most of the time in the cyberpunk universe, the most common response to a cyberpsycho is to kill them. In 2017, the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development reported that just over 40,000 veterans were experiencing homelessness, including those living on the streets or in a shelter, temporary safe haven, or any place unfit to reside in. And it's also worth noting that 91% of those people were male. While the United States government is not outright killing these people, it is clear that they are not given the resources they need to enter back into the real world. These numbers are extremely concerning, and they tell me that the military only exists to benefit the United States. And while you can get through college by enlisting in the military here, they will do little to see that veterans are actually successful once their time is up. In Edgerunners, we see Arasaka show interest in David, the protagonist. But the show makes it abundantly clear that Arasaka has no interest in David before he showed off his ability to use the Sandevistan without going psycho. They did not care about David getting beat up by the Nepo baby. I can't believe I wrote that. They did not care about David getting beat up by the Nepo babies or when he couldn't afford the new hardware for classes. It was only until he showed promise as a weapon, then Arasaka saw value in him. Arasaka has a meritocratic way of thinking, which in this case means they don't see value in anyone unless they have unique talents or abilities. Meritocracy sounds fair, but when adding in the variable of wealth disparity, which is so apparent in Cyberpunk, it becomes a problem. Here's a simple way of thinking about it. Two men want to make music, but one of them is rich and the other is poor. The rich person is far more likely to succeed on their merit because they can afford instruments, equipment, studio time, and they don't have to worry as much about bills. Whereas the starving artist, for example, is starving and probably only has a guitar. In David's case, he goes from being worthless to the Arasaka Corporation to something Arasaka sees inherent value in, right? Well, no. Arasaka doesn't see value in David the person. In fact, they don't see David at all. They see a weapon. David's ability to use the Sandevistan as effectively as he can makes him an asset, a project, an experiment. However, David doesn't seem to care about Arasaka or what they see in him because he avoids their calls and refuses to go back to Arasaka Academy. Instead, he joins Maine and his crew so that he can work his way to the top. Maine serves as a foil to Arasaka. He likes to keep his crew close and sees not only a potential weapon, but a person in David. Maine is rough around the edges, but he's a good guy with mostly good intentions. Plus, those rougher edges are likely just a product of the environment that he grew up in. He also provides foreshadowing of what will happen to David by the end of the show. Maine's cyberpsychosis should have been a wake-up call for David, but instead, David sees Maine's determination and tragic end as a fuel for the fire, and he continues to constantly try to grow. David's fixer, played by Gus from Breaking Bad, offers a job that is supposed to be high risk, high reward, but in reality is a trap. The fixer tells Militech, a rival megacorp, that Arasaka is moving important gear so that Militech can try to intercept it. The gear in question is an exoskeleton that is extremely powerful. This ultimately leads to Arasaka tricking David into installing their new suit for two reasons. They want to see what David is capable of, and they want to fuck over Militech, a rival megacorp. Arasaka could not give two shits about David living or dying. David does successfully fuck up Militech, and he survives, but he's becoming more and more of a cyberpsycho with each passing minute. In 2077, V never goes canonically cyberpsycho, although if you hit 5 stars, you are counted as a cyberpsycho, but again, not canon. But it's clear that the criticism of megacorps and their disregard for the humanity of people is being pushed here too. While V is not viewed as a weapon to Arasaka, they are viewed as valuable to the company, but only because V possesses the chip of Johnny Silverhand, and it cannot be removed. The two stories are very different, however, they can end similarly depending on what you decide to do in 2077. There is one person, if you can even call him that is the perfect embodiment of the idea I've been trying to get across, and his name is Adam Smasher. Adam Smasher started out as a reasonably normal person in New York City. He was a bad boy that eventually joined the military after his gang was killed. Eventually, he was dishonorably charged because he couldn't behave, so he became a mercenary. He seemed to be good at it too, until he was hit in the fight by some rockets that tore his fleshy body to shreds. He would have died if not for Arasaka offering him a job, and with that, a metal body. Adam took the job, not bothered by his lack of humanity. About a decade later, Smasher would lose even more of his body from a nuclear explosion. Arasaka found him and patched him up, making him even more machine than man than he already was. In the current day, Smasher's a terrifying cyborg with more metal than flesh on his body, fitting a metaphor for the lack of human emotion Smasher shows. Smasher's character design is horrifying if you ignore the fact that he looks sort of bug-eyed. His entire body is metal besides his face, and even that is so far from being able to express any kind of human emotion. The skin we do see is scarred, his eyes are covered, and he doesn't have an organic jaw or mouth. Simply everything about him screams weapon. Comparing this to a hero-like Cyborg from DC Comics, Smasher has far less of his face showing, and Cyborg has a mouth and eye which he uses because he feels human emotions, and he uses those to express that. You couldn't just replace Cyborg with anyone else, but Smasher's design makes me want to ask the question, what even about him is Adam Smasher? Sure, he still has skin on his face, but what happens when that's gone? When analyzing Smasher's appearance, I couldn't help but notice his resemblance to Darth Vader. The cybernetic body, the metal jaw, the scarred face, the lack of humanity in their character design, they share a lot of similarities. Both of these characters went through physically traumatic events that left their organic bodies dysfunctional on their own, so they had to heavily rely on machinery to make up for that. But this isn't anything groundbreaking, as it is basically the backstory behind every cyborg character in existence, including Cyborg, the DC superhero. However, what makes Smasher and Vader an interesting comparison is how they each develop as characters since becoming a cyborg. While I've never been a diehard Star Wars fan, I've always found Vader's character design very intriguing. Throughout the series, Vader is almost always seen in his suit and helmet, leaving the audience to wonder about the face behind the mask. The only hint of his humanity lies in the iconic breathing. Watching the movies in their original order, one can only imagine what Vader looks like underneath his suit. This ambiguity adds to his mystique and makes him a compelling and mysterious villain. However, the pivotal moment when Luke removes Vader's mask provides a glimpse of the human beneath the imposing facade. Despite his reprehensible actions, witnessing Despite his reprehensible actions, witnessing Vader's humanity elicits complex emotions when he meets his end. In contrast, however, Smasher never gets redeemed. Even if Adam Smasher's skull was crushed, they would make him again. Obviously, 2077 shows that while experimental, creating AIs out of humans is possible, and Arasaka is actively working on it. At the end of 2077, the audience might expect some kind of Vader moment, but he doesn't. Adam Smasher, if you choose to kill him, dies a monster. But I genuinely do not believe Adam Smasher could ever die. It's just like Helldivers. Either he gets replaced by someone entirely new, or becomes more of a robot than he already is. if you were to take one thing away from this video, it should be this. The people up top will never like you or respect you. They only will see you as a resource to be used until you're sucked dry, and once you are, you're replaced. This is a very pessimistic way to look at it, but I feel like I can be forgiven for saying that, given how utterly depressing the cyberpunk world is. I love how Cyberpunk illustrates how hellish a capitalist society is for everybody besides the top 1%. But it is worth keeping in mind that Night City is more of a satirical representation of a capitalist system than a realistic portrayal. This isn't to say that Cyberpunk is an unrealistic game. It is as realistic as a franchise with cybernetic humans should be, but a place like Night City would never exist in the real world. But this doesn't at all take away from the messaging in Cyberpunk. In fact, if anything, it adds to it. The world of Cyberpunk is an exaggeration, or like I said, satire, of the real world, and that's why it's so easy to hate Arasaka. This allows the audience to fully understand that in this world, corporations are evil, and also subtly implants to the viewers' brains like, hey, maybe Coca-Cola is a bad guy? I don't know if this video will ever be released, but if it is, thank you so much for watching. I stream on Twitch. Whenever I want. Twitch.tv/veryultraviolet. You can follow me if you want. Subscribe, like the video. I worked really hard on this. And I really love Cyberpunk, and I just really wanted to get a chance to talk about the world that I love. And I also kind of wanted to make some creative changes. I don't know. I'm really ADHD, so nothing I ever do sticks with me. But maybe maybe this time it will. Be sure to like the video and leave a comment telling me your thoughts. I will read them because I have jack shit to do. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between. My name is Violet, and as always, fuck you.